that the rate of 6.5% depreciation we have witnessed year to date in 2025 is not informed by any sustainable strategies by the current government. The current disparity between inflation and the rate of depreciation is evidence of heavy central bank intervention on the market. The Mahama administration and the central bank can do this, but this is happening only because the previous administration left a gross international reserve of $8.9 billion by the end of 2024. This is being used to shore up the value of the cedi. The president deliberately, as you know, avoided this in his statement. Fellow Ghanaians, the true state of the nation is that exchange rate stability, which we saw before the end of 2024 and which has continued into the first quarter of this year, is not by any magic from the Mahama government. It is because the Akufo-Addo government left significant levels of international reserves for them. In addressing the issue of buffers created to support expenditure and maturing debt obligations, the president focused on the sinking fund as if it is the only source of buffers. The sinking fund is just one of our buffers. At each point in time, the government designates some accounts for buffer and for purposes of special payments. In the last 8 years, such accounts included the sinking fund, the Eurobond proceeds account, the IMF proceeds account, and the Treasury Main 2 account. For example, the IMF third review disbursement of $360 million was done on 2nd December 2024, but this was kept as buffer, part of which was used to pay coupons amounting to $346 million to Eurobond holders on 3rd January 2025. This was not done from the sinking fund. Similarly, in October 2024, we paid $520 million to our Eurobond holders for the first coupons and other fees. But again, this was not done from the sinking fund. How could we have done these payments if we didn't have buffers? Yet the president thinks that the only buffers we have is the sinking fund. The NPP also left significant amount of buffers, more than 5 billion Ghana cedis from the 2024 revenue collected by GRA in the Treasury Main 2 accounts, which the new government has used. Yet the president failed to talk about it and focus only on the sinking fund. On the financial sector, ladies and gentlemen, the president again played to the gallery by stating that, and I quote, "The financial sector continues to struggle despite the previous government reportedly spending 29.9 billion Ghana cedis on the financial sector clean-up exercise to date." Reportedly spending 29.9 billion Ghana cedis on the financial sector clean-up. Typical of NDC's usual sweeping statements, he made this conclusion.
Can you please put that off, please? Put this off, please. Not completely. Can't control it. Just please, let's go back.
On the financial sector, typical of NDC's usual sweeping statements, he made this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. On the financial sector, ladies and gentlemen, the president again played to the gallery by stating that, and I quote, "The financial sector continues to struggle despite the previous government reportedly spending 29.9 billion Ghana cedis on the financial sector cleanup exercise to date," unquote. Typical of NDC's usual sweeping statements, he made this conclusion without providing any basis. Whilst we sympathize with those who were adversely affected by the financial sector cleanup, the exercise was well intended to protect the banking industry from collapse, protect depositors' money, and revive the economy. The evidence today shows that Notwithstanding the DDEP effects on the local banks, the financial sector has become stronger, with banks posting impressive financial ratios and returning to profitability. This is the true state of the financial sector in Ghana. The Bank of Ghana's recent publication, Summary of Economic and Financial Data, January 2025, provides very rich information about the performance of the financial sector. The annual growth in total assets of the financial sector as at the end of 2024 was 33.8%, and total deposits by 28.8%. Similarly, in terms of liquidity, core liquid assets to short-term liabilities grew by 46.3%. The capital market shows similar strong performance, with the GSE All-Share Index year-to-date growing by 56.2% by December 2024. The earnings and profitability ratios also show that return on asset before tax recorded an annual growth of 5.4% in December 2023 and 5% in December 2024, whilst return on equity after tax grew at 34.2% in December 2023 and 30.8% in December 2024. It is no secret that the strength of an economy is also determined by the strength of its financial sector. Given the record of performance of our financial sector under the NPP administration, is this correct, ladies and gentlemen, for such an economy to be described as badly managed? Ladies and gentlemen, you can now understand that all the main components of our economy are in good shape. The real sector, as demonstrated in real GDP growth, the external sector, showing impressive external positions through trade and current account surpluses, and the performance of the financial sector, posting impressive financial ratios. Therefore, we need to ask President Mahama, how did he come by the conclusion that the economy was mismanaged? Ladies and gentlemen, the president tried to scare the Ghanaian people about the country's debt service obligations for the next 4 years, which according to him will amount to 280 billion Ghana cedis, comprising 150 billion Ghana cedis for domestic and 130 billion Ghana cedis in external debt servicing. Government, at every time, provides for debt servicing obligations, and the president is aware of this. We expect the president to mobilize the funds and stop complaining, such as what every government in Ghana has done to service our debts. The NPP did that when he left us with debts in 2017. Our debt management strategy has ensured that Ghana's debt levels have decreased substantially, and so are our debt service, taking a significant burden off the government. We have ensured that through strong negotiations, the servicing of Ghana's debts owed to our official bilateral creditors, $5.4 billion, has been rescheduled until after 2026. The NDC government didn't negotiate this. The agreement we reached with the Official Creditors Committee for Ghana entails a rescheduling of all debt service, principal and interest, falling due between 20th December 2023 to 31st December 2026. As a result, no debt service under bilateral debt will be paid until after 2026. I want to repeat that. No debt service under bilateral debt will be paid until after 2026, including the debt we didn't pay in 2023, since we declared the debt standstill. This was negotiated by the NPP government, that we will not pay our debts to our official creditors until after 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, the rescheduled amounts to be paid are expected to be repaid in 16 years and in 17 years respectively after their contractual due date. We'll start servicing after 2026, but the amount we are rescheduling between 2023 and 2026, we won't pay them at all until after 16 and 17 years when their contractual due date have expired. This is the work the NPP government has done. Delays in payments will be compensated for by interest accruing on the amounts at concessional rates ranging between 1% and 3%. This offer applies to all our official bilateral creditors and ECA-backed facilities signed and disbursed before end 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this provides briefing space for the new government. The NPP is not in government to benefit from this. It's briefing space, significant briefing space for the new government. Yet President Mahama will not talk about that. In addition, the debt service relief from this negotiation stands at $2.8 billion, which the government of Ghana would have paid, but which now stands as savings to the country. Again, President Mahama will not talk about this. Even with such a great work done by the NPP government, the president could not acknowledge it. Rather, he sought to take an earned credit for it when he stated in his address, and I quote, "We signed a memorandum of understanding with our official creditor committee to formalize the debt treatment agreed upon with official creditors. This marks a crucial step towards Ghana's restoration of long-term sustainability. The agreement would enable financial resources to support and strengthen economic recovery," unquote. I say to Mr. President, you did not sign any MOU. What Ghana needed to do to reach an agreement was to express consent to the terms of the MOU in writing. This was done on 12 January 2024 to reach an agreement in principle, later firmed up after further negotiations in June 2024, which paved way for the second successful review of the IMF program implementation. The OCC members, the participating creditor countries, 25 of them, were those required to sign up individually, which all of them did, except 3 countries that delayed because of their long internal processes. These countries finally signed up in January 2025, and that is why President Mahama wants to take credit for this. Mr. President, you played no role in this. Apart from the rich scheduling of debt service and savings from the negotiations with our official bilateral creditors, we also achieved debt cancellation, outright debt cancellation of almost $4 billion United States dollars. An additional debt service relief of $4.7 billion United States dollars through our negotiations with Ghana's Eurobond holders. This has reduced our debt levels, our public debt levels, from 78% of GDP to 72% of GDP. In fact, from September to October 2024 alone, our debt levels reduced by 68 billion Ghana cedis. It is instructive to note, therefore, that with a total public debt level of 721 billion Ghana cedis, which President Mahama was talking about, which is 72% of GDP, our record on debt sustainability is better compared with President Mahama's debt to GDP ratio of 73.1% by the end of 2016 when he left office. This, therefore, does not give the president a good standing to teach us lessons on debts. The energy sector debt at the beginning of 2017 stood at $2.5 billion. According to the Ghana Energy Sector Recovery Program, the energy sector was badly managed by President Mahama to the extent that the debts could reach $12 billion in 5 years if nothing was done about it. President Ay3hu ensured that this did not happen, and we ended our administration with $2.4 billion debts in the energy sector, less than the $2.5 billion we inherited from President Mahama in 2016, and notwithstanding the fact that President Ay3hu kept the lights on. The NPP administration kept the lights on by spending $6.2 billion in the process over 7 years, with 2024 expenditure on energy alone standing at $1.4 billion. It is important to state also that the bulk of the ECG debts the President referenced in his address came from excess capacity payments because of take-or-pay energy contracts signed by President Mahama. These payments could not be reflected in electricity tariffs because PURC allows for only the cost of energy consumed to be in tariffs and not the cost of contracted energy. This is what resulted in the debts. And so we ask, as we often do, now who caused some? President Mahama should have been the last to come talking about energy sector debts, when the bulk of the debts were caused by deals that he signed in his previous administration. Even with these debts from President Mahama's energy deals, Nana Akufo-Addo kept the lights on. We expect the president to do the same. Keep the lights on, Mr. President. The president refers to some 55 stalled projects funded from external resources because of non-disbursement of $2.9 billion, pales in the shadow of the savings we have made for Ghana, which he's going to be a beneficiary of anyway. The consequent savings Ghana is making through the rescheduling of the debt service in respect of this project shows that our debt management strategy was masterstroke. The reason the president must applaud us rather than doing politics with it. We wish to state, without any equivocation, that unlike the NDC, the NPP administration borrowed to develop our country. By the end of our administration, we increased the size of GDP by $20 billion and created 2.3 million jobs in 8 years, the highest job creation of any government since independence. This contrasts with the previous Mahama administration, which supervised a contraction in GDP by $10 billion between 2013 and 2016. The president's assurances to bondholders about his commitment to unmatured coupons is good. That is what this government must do to continue to increase investor confidence in the economy. However, to present this as a new policy or measure is to play mischief. The honoring of the matured coupon payment of 6 billion Ghana cedis in cash and 3.4 billion Ghana cedis in kind due in February 2025 to all domestic debt exchange program bondholders, which President Mahama's government did, was the fourth of these payments. The previous 3 payments honored under the NPP administration. So it is not new. I was even shocked because when we did the payment, the 3 payment, it was the Ministry of Finance which issued statements. I was shocked that for the 4th payment, the president himself issued a statement as if to say that this is an achievement. This is the first time this is happening. I was very shocked. And I was wondering how the professionals at the finance ministry who usually do this were feeling. I was wondering. Such professionals have been have been asked to shut up for the president to do that job. In fact, the previous NPP government honored these 3 previous payments to domestic bondholders between August 2023 and December 2024, totaling 17.25 billion Ghana cedis in cash and 9.77 billion Ghana cedis in kind, based on the prescribed payment terms. Also, individuals who did not tender their bonds were paid coupons amounting to 515 million Ghana cedis at various times between 2023 and 2024, in line with the MOU signed between the government and the coalition of individual bondholders. And we did these payments without all the noise about sinking fund. The breakdown of the payments were as follows. First payment, August 2023, total payment of 8.55 billion Ghana cedis. Second payment in February 2024, total payments of 9.11 billion Ghana cedis. And the third payment, August 2024, total payments of 9.35 billion Ghana cedis. Energy sector. The government's handling of the power situation has increased uncertainty about economic growth prospects this year. The promises by the president in his address to the nation to fix the current doomsaw cannot be different from those he made during the 4 years of doomsaw endured by Ghanaians between the end of 2011 and 2016. Not even the creation of a new Ministry of Power by him could save the nation from the excruciating effects of Dumsor, resulting in the dismissal of then Minister for Power in January 2015. Even in 2016, there were major power interruptions which were blamed on maintenance and what was described as localized faults, a new term for PR stunt intended to cover up Dumsor, as the government was avoiding issuing load shedding timetable despite public demands for it because the general elections were close. Yet, the Ghanaian people knew Dumsor had not ended because they lived with it and continued to suffer from it. Mr. President, you did not fix Dumsor as you claimed in your address.
What?
Your record on Dumsor is abysmal, unlike your predecessor, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who kept the lights on.
Yeah.
As we are back to Dumsor in another Mahama term, Ghanaians remember with fear and anxiety the potential devastation this could cause for them and their businesses, especially small businesses like hair salons, welders, dressmakers, and many more who earn their daily bread from these vocations. Many people and businesses have already felt the pinch and the pain of living with the current Dumsor. We have also seen the return of electric generating sets in shops, in clinics, and at social events. Mr. President, this is the true state of our nation and not what you presented to Parliament. To ameliorate the impact of these erratic power challenges, we, the mighty minority, call on the government to publish a load shedding timetable today to help people and businesses plan effectively to offset some of the losses the economy is currently suffering from. On the petroleum sector, the record will show that production of crude oil has declined because President Mahama signed contracts with 13 companies, most of which, in fact, all of which, had no technical or financial capacity to undertake oil activity. However, President Akufo-Addo administration rather introduced measures for aggressive reserve replacement on assumption of office in 2017. As a result of these measures, between 2018 and 2022, 7 discoveries of crude oil were made. Ladies and gentlemen, as industry watchers know, the COVID-19 pandemic slowed down operations across the oil industry in the world, which affected the appraisal of these discoveries in Ghana. To incentivize these companies, the then government, the Akufo-Addo government, took the decision to restore their lost time to them. Several amendments were also made to the existing frameworks to provide further incentives to the industry. The NPP government could therefore not be accused of creating a hostile business climate and excessive political interference in the words of President Mahama. The NPP administration also added to crude oil production with the coming on stream of Jubilee Southeast in September 2023, which added 30,000 barrels of oil per day to production from the Jubilee field, thereby taking production from the field to 100,000 barrels of oil per day. Ladies and gentlemen, we are alarmed at the risk of these power challenges, reversing the economic turnaround in Ghana, as evidenced by the resurgent economic growth achieved last year. The dangers to economic growth are very visible for us to see. There is no reliable power supply now. Investors are being turned away by a government that is baselessly painting a bad picture of its own economy. And contractors are not being paid, despite the 68 billion Ghana cedis approved by Parliament for the government to spend in the first quarter of the year. And notwithstanding the significant amount of revenue at their disposal to meet these spending requirements, including, for example, the over 5 billion Ghana cedis buffer left for them, the 8.7 billion Ghana cedis collected by Ghana Revenue Authority for January 2025 alone, and about 67 billion Ghana cedis borrowed in less than 2 months. Many government projects have halted as a result, and the resultant job losses by young Ghanaians is very painful and unfortunate. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the prospects for growth, economic growth, in this first quarter of 2025 remain weak and sluggish, and the government must change its economic management strategy as soon as possible. The Mahama administration made a lot of political gains by highlighting the plight of young Ghanaians who were yet to get jobs after over 2 million others had gotten jobs in the 8 years of the NPP administration. They promised 2 more people for each job under the 24-hour economy program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now a notorious fact that to create vacancies for the purpose of employing NDC youth, the Mahama administration has sacked thousands of young Ghanaians who had been properly employed, by the previous administration. The termination of the jobs of young Ghanaians, which has become synonymous with Mr. President Mahama, who we now prefer to call Terminator 1, is a sign of what is yet to come. Sacking people from employment and replacing them later with others does not amount to job creation. What the people of Ghana want are new jobs for those yet to be employed. President Mahama knows that. The programs he outlined in his statement, Nkoko, Nkitinkiti, and the rest, cannot create sustainable jobs for the Ghanaian youth. Hence, the resort to termination of existing jobs for future replacement to shore up his job numbers. This is after President Mahama had argued, sadly, in 2016, that it was legitimate for an outgoing administration to recruit and sign deals up until the midnight of January 7 the following year, when its term expires. Not only are these double standards worrying, but the dismissals will no doubt worsen the unemployment situation which he promised to fix. The thousands who have been dismissed have been condemned to suffering and hardship. The fight against Galamsey has been difficult, no doubt. President Mills struggled with it. President Mahama struggled with it in his first term. And despite the best of efforts, President Akufo-Addo also struggled with it. After having made so much propaganda about it, while in opposition, key NDC figures appearing before Parliament's Appointments Committee could not substantiate any of the propaganda allegations of the NPP being complicit in the Galamsey phenomenon. In contrast, media networks are now reporting that weeks after the election, known NDC kingpins in the Ashanti region have invaded some forests and commenced Galamsey activities there. Also in the Western region and the Eastern region. And Western North, all over. The president is quiet, is silent on all this. On the 19th day of January 2025 edition of the Ghanaian Daily Graphic, it was reported that illegal miners numbering about 60 breached the Anglo Gold Ashanti Mine security fence and intruded at Cote D. The aim of the illegal miners was to enter the deep decline. The decision to enter the deep decline was because of a promise made to these illegal miners by the leadership of the NDC during the campaign. The promise was to assist them to illegally mine in areas which had been legally acquired by the Anglo Gold Company. Also, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, speaking to Parliament on February 19, 2025, raised a very disturbing issue of insecurity, leading to an alarming rate of illegal mining activities within the nation's forest reserves. 9 out of the 44 forest reserves have been completely taken by illegal mining thugs with impunity. Our security agents and the Forestry Commission no longer have access to these forest reserves. We wish to ask, since when thugs involved in illegal mining became more powerful than our well-trained security agents? This is the true state of the fight against Galamsey, for which reason the President's address was scanty, on any real steps to tackle the canker. Infrastructure development. The president conveniently omitted from his address the strides made in the housing sector under the immediate past administration. This included the completion of some of the stalled projects inherited in 2017, like the Asokori Mampong housing project, resumption of works on the Adenta SHC estates, and the selection of the private partner to commence work on the completion of the Saglime project. Additionally, 1,000 homes were delivered to the security services, 1,000 homes delivered by the TDC, and nearly another 1,000 homes by the State Housing Company. The administration also set up the National Home Ownership Fund that has delivered about 500 homes so far. The president failed to mention that the Ministry of Finance under President Akufo-Addo gave approval to GIF to set up a GIF housing sub-fund to receive funding for bankable housing projects, while the Ministry of Housing rolled out a PPP framework. One of his regular addresses to the nation, where he detailed the government's measures to contain the spread of the virus, His Excellency President Akufo-Addo bemoaned the lack of hospitals in some 88 districts and 6 newly created regions of the country, and promised swift government investment in new hospitals, not only to address the urgent need to contain the spread of the virus in those districts and regions, but also to correct the anomaly in the distribution of health infrastructure across the country. The initial hospitals